Today we are wrapping up the series called Entourage. We've been talking about something that relates to all of us. We all want friends. I mean, we want people to like us. We want people to hang out with. We want to have an entourage of people who have our back because let's face it, friends just make life more interesting, don't they? I mean, when you think about your friends, there are some that make you laugh. There are others that make you think about things in a new way. And then there are some friends who just go against the flow. They do their own thing. Perhaps some of your friends dress like you, talk like you, listen to the same music as you, eat the same food as you. And then you've got other friends who live a complete opposite kind of way. But in the midst of it all, the people that you call friends, I want you to think about the two people that you are closest to, that you spend the most time with, that you text first when it's time to hang out. The two people that you lean on when life just isn't going the way you would want it to go. The two people that when you scroll through your Instagram feed, you see the most pictures of. Clearly besides yourself, of course. If you don't have two people that come to mind, I want you to think about the two people that could be candidates for being those friends in your life. So go ahead and get those two members of your entourage front and center in your brain. Got it? Cool. Okay, now let me ask you a question. How did you choose those two friends? How did they end up being the two closest people to you? Maybe you would say, well, we were neighbors since we were young. Or we sat next to each other in biology. Or, oh, we played soccer together. Or we both love to break dance. Or maybe it's something crazy like, oh, dude, it's wild, but we both got dumped by the same person and our mutual hatred actually bonded us together. Or maybe you would say, I was actually in a season of life where I really didn't have many friends. And he or she just made me feel accepted, made me feel noticed. Most of us don't have a great answer. We haven't put a lot of thought into how they got where they are. Unfortunately, our friendships just didn't begin on purpose. They just kind of happened. And that's because we obviously have a lot of other things to think about. And I get that. School, sports, parents, the future, which flavor of Axe body spray to wear, how to have game and swagger and get the attention of the opposite sex. I mean, maybe this just isn't that big of a deal to you, but let me ask you this question. Have you ever been directly influenced by the people that you're closest to? I'm not talking about just the way you dress or the music you listen to. No, I'm talking about the bigger issues. Have you ever made fun of someone because your friends were making fun of them? Have you ever been friends with someone simply because your friends like them? Have you ever lied to impress your friends? Have you ever tried that drink or that drug because your friends didn't want to try it alone? Maybe you decided not to try that drink because your friends weren't going to. Have you ever felt the pressure to have sex because your friends continuously talked about their experiences and you felt like you were missing out? Maybe you did something unwise, unhealthy, endangering your future, maybe even sinful because of who was standing beside you. Maybe you went to church because your friends were going to church. Or maybe you drifted away from God because you were around friends that just didn't care that much. At some point, we've probably all, to a certain degree, done one of these because friends have a direct impact on us not just the little things of life, but in some of the really big areas as well. And the closer the friend, the more influence they have on us. You see, there's something that God wants you to realize about who is closest to you. And whether you go to church or believe in God or not, what He has to say has the potential to make your life, your future, a whole lot better. In the first couple weeks of the series, we've been talking about a guy named David, the famous king of Israel who lived so long ago. David actually had a son named Solomon. Han Solo, as his friends called him. I don't know if they called him that or not. But he was described as the wisest man who ever lived. He was a brilliant king, a great leader, a military strategist. He was very rich and very powerful. And people really, really loved him because he led them to a time of incredible peace, incredible prosperity. And into that peace and prosperity, Rehoboam, his son, was born. Now, clearly, Solomon wasn't great at choosing children's names because he chose the name Rehoboam, but we've got to look past that. Not a bad gig for Rehoboam to have your dad as the smartest man to ever live, and, by the way, one of the richest. And when Solomon passed away, guess whose turn it was? It was Rehoboam's turn to become king. And so, just like having a newly elected president in the United States, the people saw the crowning of a new king as a chance to request a new style of leadership. In 1 Kings 12, we read this. The whole assembly of Israel went to Rehoboam and they said, Rehoboam, your dad, your father put a heavy yoke on us. Now lighten the harsh labor and the heavy yoke that he put on us, and we will serve you. The heavy yoke that they were referring to was talking about the taxation, the forced labor that Solomon had used during his reign. They were things that he had used to help implement and build and expand his empire. So the people basically asked Rehoboam, how about if we take a break on all this building, on all this expanding for a little while? So Rehoboam does what any smart, any logical person would do. He talked to the people who had previously worked for his dad. In 1 Kings 12, it continues and says, Then King Rehoboam consulted the elders who had served his father Solomon during his lifetime. How would you advise me to answer these people? He asked them. And they said, Well, Rehoboam, if today you will be a servant to those people and serve them and give them a favorable answer, they will always be your servants. Or in other words, they said, Rehoboam, lighten the load, and the people will work happily for you as long as you live. Seems like an easy choice, right? Give the people a break, and re-election is in the bag forever. That's when the story takes a turn. See, Rehoboam didn't like the advice the elders gave him. So where did he go? He went to his friends, the people closest to him. And in this story, his entourage is described as the young men who had grown up with him. And as we're about to see, they had the most influence on Rehoboam. In 1 Kings 12, it continues and says, The young men who had grown up with him replied, These people have said to you, your father put a heavy yoke on us, now make our yoke lighter? You ought to go back to them and tell them, my little finger is thicker than my father's waist. My father laid a heavy yoke on you. I will make it even heavier. My father scourged you with whips. I will scourge you with scorpions. By the way, scorpions was referring to a particular type of whip that was full of sharp pieces of metal. Ow. So Rehoboam's friends were basically saying, dude, you need to man up and you need to show those people who's boss. And unfortunately, Rehoboam did just that. I say unfortunately because within days, one of his military leaders was brutally murdered. The people elected another king, and now a civil war had broken out that split this nation in half. Yeah, not a great plan. You see, this story is particularly sad in light of the fact that Solomon, Rehoboam's dad, had gone to great lengths to ensure that Rehoboam avoided this type of heartache and pain. Solomon had actually written a book that maybe you had heard about, a book that he wrote for his own sons. He called this book Proverbs. And in this book, Solomon makes a statement. In Proverbs 13:20, he says, Walk with the wise, and you will become wise. But a companion of fools, they suffer harm. You see, Solomon was urging his sons not to just occasionally spend time with wise people, but to walk with them, do life alongside of them. Wise people, they are people who are heading in a wise direction. They're people who are making good decisions about their future. They're realizing more and more of their potential. They're not corrupting their character. They're not just doing right because it's right, but they're doing right because it's the best thing. And if you walk closely with them, you will be wise and you will be glad that you did. And then on the other hand, a fool is simply a person who lacks good judgment. A fool is a person who doesn't necessarily want to be a bad person. They just look at the right and they look at the wrong and they choose the wrong. It just means that they make unhealthy, destructive decisions. They know that there's going to be consequences and they just don't care. And if you walk with them too closely, you will suffer for it, even if you are a good person with good intentions. Hey, students, if your friends party, you're more likely to be a partier. If your friends make fun of other people, you're probably going to join in. If your friends smoke a lot of weed, you're probably going to be tempted to try it. If your friends don't care about their future, you're probably going to start caring a little less about yours. If your friends don't care about Jesus, it will have an effect on you. If your friends don't go to church, then you're probably going to be less likely to show up. Solomon knew it. Rehoboam learned it the hard way. Friends can make you and friends can break you. They will either influence you towards wise decisions or they'll influence you towards foolish ones. And the same is true of you. Your friends that are closest to you will have an influence on you. And that influence will either lead you in a healthy direction or an unhealthy direction. Now, I would imagine at this point, some of you are thinking, oh, this is great. Now you're trying to tell me that I can't even have fun, that I'm going to have to bail on all my friends and become a lonely loser and hang out with my parents all weekend long? Well, no, that's not true. I mean, you can have fun and you can have friends and you can have a great high school experience, a great middle school experience. It's not mutually exclusive. You see, you can also do it in a foolproof kind of way, in a way that learns from Rehoboam's mistakes. You can look back on this time and actually say, I am so glad I did friendship the way I did. Others of you are thinking, I would give my right arm to even have friends at all. And if that's the case, you need to be even more careful. This is where I was when I was your age, because our desire to have friendship, our desire to have friends is normal, it's natural, but it potentially could lead us to hang out with the wrong kind of people. And that will eventually have a negative impact on you, just like it has had a negative impact on me. And so no matter who you are, there's a way to get through these years without regret. Here's just a few ideas. The first one, be an influencer, not influenced. Learn to tell the difference between when you have the power and the opportunity to inspire and encourage and shape your friends and when you don't. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that you should only be friends with good, well-behaving Christians, but you got to be smart. You got to recognize that there's a difference between I'm currently influencing and I'm currently being influenced. Playing basketball with some friends that you're trying to influence, great time for influence. Playing a post-game drinking party, not so much. Maybe you need to think about saying no to some certain people and some certain situations. Some of you might need to move some fools out of your closest circle. I'm not saying they're bad people. I just don't want you to suffer for having them so close to your life. Maybe you need to say no to some people and some situations that are potentially destructive and unhealthy for you. Here's another thing. Maybe you need to say yes to the right people. I wish that I had more courage to say yes to the right people. That doesn't mean it's the cool person, the person who's always the most fun, the person that you want desperately to be friends with, but it does mean it's the people who want to make wise decisions in those important areas. Those are friends that will go the distance. If you can find friends with common interests and common values, heading in a common direction, Those are the friends that you want to spend time with, doing the things that you both like to do without influencing each other negatively. And then finally, and this is a little harsh, but there are some of you that you just need to stop being a fool. I wish somebody had told me that, because it's just true. Some of you are the fool in your friend group. And not only are you making unhealthy, destructive choices for yourself, but you're taking other people down with you. And God has given you a gift. He's given you a gift to be a leader, and you could have an incredible impact on your friends. But unfortunately, you're choosing to be a fool. And your closest friends are going to suffer harm because of it. And I would love it, God would love it, if you cared about that. Friends can make you, friends can break you. Solomon knew it, Rehoboam learned it. Your entourage is about more than just social status, fun on the weekends, the people you hang out with. Your entourage plays a role in your future. Your entourage involves influence, both yours and theirs. And your entourage has a lot to say about your relationship with God. So would you be open to allowing God to speak into your entourage? Will you ask God to show you what type of friends you need to have? And then, will you ask God to begin to lead you towards being a friend and being an influencer who leads your entourage in a great direction?